During this chapter, we're going to talk about something very important to hacking, and that's network attacks. Now, obviously, every chapter we talk about during the CEH course is important, both for the exam and for real life. But think about it for a moment. How would you hack all of these hosts, these servers, and so forth, web servers, databases, unless you could get to them over the network? Now, obviously, if you had physical access, and we've talked about this before, that could be one way to attack a box. But it's very hard to get physical access sometimes, and there's only so much you can do. So obviously you're going to be attacking most of your boxes through the network. So it's very helpful to have network attack knowledge and to master network attacks. A friend of mine that I work with says, own the network and own the data. So if you own the network, in other words, if you're able to shut devices off, get to devices, change their configuration, wage denial of service attacks, and so forth, then you can own the data on the hosts that are attached to the network as well. So, network attacks are an important step in the process. You can't get to the host without going through the network. Now, network attacks start with scanning, and we've looked at that already with Nmap, but they also include things like sniffing, session hijacking, man-in-the-middle attacks. You also should know about evading security devices during a network attack so you don't get caught. You may also need to know about penetrating firewalls and other network security devices. And of course, you're going to want to know about wireless attacks because not all of your networks are wired. And in the end, you may also want to know about denial of service attacks because in the end, if you can't get the data, then frequently, a solution that a hacker will use is to simply deny everyone else the data through a denial of service attack. Now, I will tell you, to attack a network, you really need in-depth knowledge of TCP/IP protocols, network devices, the network stack, the OSI model, definitely, and other network-related information. You need to know these things. You'll also need to know tools, the different network attack tools that you could use, and the different vulnerabilities things like protocols and services have. So you'll need to know all that to wage an attack on the network itself. So let's talk about a few things involved with network attacks, and this is in no particular order. And a lot of these we're going to talk about over the next several sessions and throughout the rest of the course. Now, we've mentioned scanning already. We've looked at Nmap. We know that scanning gives you information on the open ports, protocols, and services. You can do footprinting with scanning and enumeration and get information about those ports, protocols, and services. We also talked about network mapping a little bit. And with network mapping, what we want to do is develop a network map to determine what devices are actually present, up and running, and what they're connected to on the network. So we can get an idea of what boxes are behind what other boxes. Now, vulnerability scanning we've talked about as well. And vulnerability scanning is used to determine the vulnerabilities associated with the particular ports, protocol, services, and even the network applications that are running on the box. Say it's an Apache server or a IIS server, for example. We want to know the particular version associated with that application, and we want to know the vulnerabilities that go with it. So that's why we'll do vulnerability scanning. Now, sniffing is something we haven't talked about much yet, and we're going to have a pretty decent demo on that coming up. And sniffing is where we actually look at traffic on the network, we examine it, and we use it. We look for credentials, we look for information that could help us further attack the network, what ports and protocols are open, and so forth. We're gathering information and using it when we're sniffing, and we're going to look at sniffing using Wireshark and Backtrack. We also have man-in-the-middle attacks, and these are used to intercept data and credentials. And basically, an attacker inserts themselves into a communication session without either party knowing it and passively listens and just grabs data. Now, you also have session hijacking, and that's where a hacker actually becomes part of the session. They hijack the session, and they pretend that they are the other party. They spoof the other party. So each party thinks they're talking to the correct one, but they're actually talking to the hacker in the middle, and they have hijacked that session, and they can send false data to either party they want and collect the real data. So those are some basics that you might see in a network attack, and we're going to cover a lot of these in depth over the next several sessions and throughout the course. So definitely learn what you can about networks and make sure you come to the exam with a solid knowledge of TCP/IP network devices, ports, protocols, services, the OSI model, and so forth. We'll cover a little bit of that as we go on through the course. We're not going to make you network experts because we assume you have some of that knowledge already, but we will point out the key pieces of knowledge that you're going to have to conduct some of these attacks.